where Tennessee could end up, if things play as they may, where they would end up in the college football playoff bracket. So let's begin with this. What record do you think Tennessee finishes with? That would get us started from the get. So go with that.
So, well, I think Tennessee finishes 11-1, and I always projected they would finish 11-1. Heather Dinich of ESPN says that, reported yesterday, to avoid any debate, Tennessee may have to go 12-0 and beat Georgia and Alabama to get to the college football playoff. That she didn't say they wouldn't get in if they win 11-1, but she said that that's the only way they could avoid debate. I disagree with that. I think if you're 11-1, you don't have, there's no debate you're going to the college football playoff.
Okay, my thoughts on if Tennessee were to go 10-2 with the schedule and not make the playoffs. Last Look brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn.
To visit ccteyes.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at ccteyes.com. Simply the best.
Okay, I disagree with Heather Dinich as well. I think that 10-2 Tennessee is a lock to get in, but I think they will go 11-1. I think they're either going to beat Alabama or Georgia. So I started the season at 10-2. I think you were 11-1. I'm now 11-1 because of that defense is just special good. And I think that you get in at 10-2, 11-1 probably means you're playing for the SEC championship. So you're then 12-1 or 11-2. So I don't know where Tennessee would fall in that regard. Where do you think they fall right now, bracketology wise? I don't know if we have a graphic we're pulling up, or you're
I'll pull it up in a second. Okay. I just want to point this out because you said actually we need to do it. We might talk about this more tomorrow, but the SEC has set itself up for chaos, and based on FPI projections, Dave, 11-1 may not get you to the SEC title, because right now FPI projections has 4 SEC teams finishing 11-1 and 7-1 in conference play. How do they pick the top 2 after that? And I'll explain that. I'll explain that in a column, and we will talk about it tomorrow. But chaos is coming to the SEC, guys, because of this stupid scheduling and the way Greg Sankey set up this conference with 16 teams.
Jimmy mentioned that too as something that he wanted to talk about. We didn't have time. He was on the program every Wednesday, brought to you by Varner Ford. And so Jimmy mentioned that as well, Caleb. And I'm a firm believer that the SEC should have played 9 games. I'm still not sure why that didn't happen, but that would take away one of the gimme games that every SEC team seems to have. So
true. And before I get to this playoff point, though, because a lot of people are saying, oh, the SEC plays 8 conference games, the Big Ten gets 9, acting like the Big Ten plays tougher schedules. That 9th conference game is against Northwestern or Rutgers. And I'm thinking, okay, yes, the SEC, you may only play 8 conference games, but what if you're like Georgia and you have to play Alabama, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Texas this year? I'd rather play a 9-game Big Ten schedule than that Georgia schedule, wouldn't you?
Yes. So I'm going to say right now, if the Vols go 10-2 and don't make playoffs, it's rigged, or just the way chips have fallen. So let's take a look at your bracketology and where you have Tennessee going right now. I'll go ahead and tell you that I believe winning an SEC championship, Caleb and I don't agree on this, but I believe that is significant. However, I would rather see a home game at Neyland Stadium in the college football playoffs than I would rather see Tennessee win an SEC championship game, just because I think that would be epic as a consumer of the product. It would also be epic if they were in the SEC championship game again, which would be the first time since, Caleb?
2007.
2007, right. I wanted to say 6. So, Caleb, where do you have them bracketology-wise?
All right, so right now I have Tennessee as a 6 seed in my bracketology. And guys, remember this, because of the auto bids, even if you're the number 2 team in the nation, if the number 1 team is in your conference, then you are no higher than the number 5 seed. So, because the top 4 conference champions get the buys. So right now I have Tennessee. By the way, these are not projections. These are specifically where teams are right now based on their resume. I have Tennessee as the number 6 seed, playing at home against Ohio State as the number 11 seed. Now, Ohio State fans are going to come at me, but the truth of the matter is
Wait, is the home game on the bottom of all these?
No.
Okay.
The higher seeds on the top. And then I know it's confusing, but typically, traditionally, you put higher seeds on top. So even though the higher seeds
so that game would be Ohio State at Tennessee would be your first round matchup. That would be television gold. However, I don't think that would happen because I think they would try to twist it. I think there are a couple teams on here that would have a home field that would sell. And when I say sell, I'm talking about to TV executives. They want to see the stands full. TV executives look at that, and it's a bad indication of viewership if they don't have the stands full. So I think you're going to want that environment. So some teams that I think could get the benefit of the doubt, Caleb, whether it's home team or not, you've got a couple on here, and a couple I don't think are applicable at all. But I think Tennessee, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, and to some extent Penn State would garner favor among the college football playoff committee because of their home field. Do you argue with any of those? And would you include any of the others? In other words, if Texas and UNLV are playing, I know that's not how you have it set up, but there's no way right. But you don't have, but it looks like they would play at UNLV, which you don't mean that. But with the way it's set up there, there's no way you and I would agree that they're going to have anybody play at UNLV, correct?
No. But Dave, I agree with you, but only partially. What I mean by that is this, and this is why I have, for instance, Georgia on the road right now. Georgia has a loss, and we're doing resumes. If you're right, if it's the difference between a 10 seed or an 8 seed or a 9 seed or an 8 seed or a 9 seed or a 7 seed, you're absolutely right. They're going to sit there and they're going to tweak it to get the better team at home. But if you are clear cut one of the lower seeds in the playoff, like you backed in, I don't think they're going to say, oh, Ohio State is the worst at large team in the playoff. We're going to give them a home game as an 8 seed when they're clearly an 11 seed. I don't think they would do that. I think they'd have to show some discretion. Now, where you might have me is something like right now. I mean, Ohio State is undefeated, so technically you could maybe use that plausible deniability. You can't use it for Georgia right now, but you could use it for Ohio State and maybe have them replace Missouri, because right now I have Missouri playing a home game against Iowa State. And I think that you could theoretically come to me and say, come on, they're not going to have Missouri play a home game over Ohio State if both teams have similar resumes.
All right, our poll question today brought to you by Asia Cafe. Treat yourself to authentic Asian cuisine handcrafted from guarded family recipes. 5 locations to choose from, asiacafe.org. And they also have that 6-to-1 Brazilian cocoa energy booster premix instant white coffee, golden label coffee bag with the limbs on it. And they've been around since 1909. And Philip Lim is carrying the torch as a 3-generation family business and started to expand the Lim dynasty into Knoxville. Fantastic food at Asia Cafe, and you can order the coffee right below asiacafe.org. Caleb, our poll question, final standing is?
If the Vols go 10-2 and don't make the playoffs, it's rigged, just bad luck. And 68% say rigged, 32% say just bad luck.
If they go 10-2, it's rigged in some shape or form. I'm not saying that they're against Tennessee. I'm saying that the rules are rigged to get Pac-10, 12, whatever. I mean, whatever they have out there to get 2 ACC teams in to something political will go on. Maybe rigged isn't the right word, but something, if Tennessee goes 10-2, let's say with close losses to Alabama and Georgia. I mean, if they get their brains beat in 60-3, that changes things. But as long as they're in the game within 10 and they lose those 2 games and they don't make it, then it is rigged in some shape, form, or fashion, because you have to include these group of 5 teams. You have to do all this other stuff when at the end of the day, 10-2, I don't care what you say, would be, don't tell me strength of schedule and all that sort of stuff. I'm just here to tell you that that is one of the 12 top teams in the country.
Yeah, but again, their job's not to pick the 12 top teams. It's to pick the top 7 at-large teams. And
I know. So what I'm telling you is that all these other things.
So you're saying rigged not from like we hate Tennessee, but rigged from we have a system that's set up and it's rigged in favor of auto bids.
Yes, that's exactly what I mean.
Well, I mean, it's already rigged. I mean, so I wanted to go through the list. So do you have any problem with me having Alabama as the overall number 1 seed right now?
No, not at all. As long as you don't have any problems checking out Hound Dogs of Knoxville, champions look good in orange, HD Knoxville, you can order online. Yes. No, I don't have a problem with Alabama being number 1. Not at all.
All right. And number 2 seed is Oregon right now. I think they're probably the best team in the Big Ten as of right now. They're the highest ranked. Where it gets laughable is, again, you have to have 4 conference champions. So guess who else is getting a bye, Dave? BYU is a number 3 seed. And Miami is a number 4 seed. And I mean, the idea, and this is where it's so crazy. And so
does that, if you have a bye, does that lock? Okay, no, then you would play at the bowl site. Okay, I got it. Go ahead.
Yeah, you don't get a home game. You play the bowl site. But like, honestly, so then comes the next ones. I have Tennessee playing Ohio State. I do have UNLV visiting Texas. Right now I have Georgia still a 10 seed visiting 7 seed Penn State. And then I have Iowa State and Missouri. Now, again, you may not want to give Iowa State or Missouri a home game, either one, but that was an old Big 8 rivalry. So if they could match those two together, they would. And guys, what they're going to try to do, they're going to try to avoid conference games in the first round as much as they possibly can. My first 4 out, just real quick, are Michigan, LSU, Clemson, and Indiana. And my top 5 group of 5 is UNLV, Army, Navy, Liberty, and Boise State as of right now.
Okay. It's going to be Army or Navy or Boise State. It's not going to be Liberty, and it's not going to be UNLV. I know they got through one game without the mass defections due to NIL issues, but it's not going to be UNLV after what they've lost in quarterback and running back, right?
It could. I don't know the rest of UNLV's schedule. I confess, I went straight by resume, not by projection. So as much research as I do, guys, I dropped the ball doing the research on the rest of UNLV's schedule.
Check that. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. UNLV's not going to go to the point where they get in the college football playoff. They'd have to go undefeated. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. Do you think UNLV can run the table?
No, because they play Syracuse this week, but they do get Syracuse at home, but I think they'll lose that one. But the season, and then they visit Utah State, they visit Oregon State. The season will come down to when they host Boise State, October the 25th. That game will probably be the determining factor. On the other end, though, Dave, I'm looking at Army and Navy schedule. Now, they both play Notre Dame, and they both play Notre Dame on neutral sites. However, if that's just their only loss, I mean, what happens, Dave, if Army and Navy are both 10-1? They're about to play each other, but the College Football Playoff Selection Committee comes out. They make their decisions because the Army Navy game is after the selection committee comes out. Army and Navy are both 10-1, and it's down to those two teams to be the group of 5 team in the College Football Playoff. Could you imagine that scenario?
Well, surely you would say that the winner of the Army Navy game is going to be the one. You couldn't do your final prediction.
The first week of the playoffs, I think, is the weekend of the Army. No, I'm sorry. No, they have to set it before the Army Navy game.
Okay, let's dig into that more tomorrow. That's interesting.